Hey everyone, Lifesaver here with another video. This time going over the big question that everyone keeps asking is what is better in Mythic Plus? Is it Wildstalker or is it Keeper? I've seen quite a few videos on YouTube, a lot of them not really explaining all the talent choices, why you may pick one tree over the other, and what are the pros and cons for each. So I figured I'd make a little bit of a guide here, going over each talent choices, which one has priority maybe in certain dungeons, or which one depending on your current playstyle, and yeah, kind of take it from there. I don't want to waste anyone's too much time, so if you guys are in a big rush and you don't have 10 to 15 minutes, TLDR, Wildstalker will do a little bit more damage, and if you're a coordinated group, we'll get you a little bit more HPS. If you're not a coordinated and you're just pugging, Keeper the Grove is safer, has a DR extra for you as well, makes life a little bit better, but your damage will be a little bit lower, depending on how high of a key you're going. But not to waste any more time, let's dive deep a little bit into why these things are the case here. So first we'll go with Wildstalker. I've been running my recent keys with Wildstalker. Originally I was going completely Keeper the Grove. I had no gear, so the safety net up to 8% DR and predicted growth was very big for me and very helpful, and playing around the extra trees for the extra HPS. But first we'll go into Wildstalker. What is so great? Let's go over each talent, what's going on, and what's so powerful about it. So you have the bleed, right? That's the main thing for Wildstalker, is the thriving growth. So when you apply Rapier Rake, you apply this extra bleed on them, and later on it gets symbiosis, so you get 5% more damage output. I think it's somewhere down here. Yeah, it makes your damage do 5% more. That can also apply, which is really neat. But the thing that we want to know is healing. How does Wildstalker heal more? Well, with the same talent, whenever you Wild Growth, Regrowth, or F-Flow, which are your big healers in the AoE setting, right? You drop F-Flow on the ground with Spring Blossoms ticking, and you're always going to have a big Wild Growth that's going to go out to heal your whole party. So every time they tick, it says you have a chance to get a Symbiotic Bloom, which is another hot. And this hot can stack. So it's not like, one person got the hot, it procced, that's great. I've seen sometimes 3-4 times on one person. So they have 30-40% more healing because they have this little hot. And it's healing for a decent amount. It's not crazy, but it's a good heal for a 6-second heal. But it's the mastery stacking that is very powerful. Especially when you're in a situation where there's pulsing damage over 6 or 7 seconds, and you get a Wild Growth right as soon as the damage comes out. Your Spring Blossom is also going to be out on the ground with your F-Flow. There's multiple ticking already happening. Ideally, everyone should get at least one extra 10% healing hot. Some people may get 2 or 3. And then you're also spamming Regrowths, which is also the other thing that ticks and procs this down tree. So when you need the big healing checks, is the higher chances that you have to proc this extra healing, which is very nice because you don't need passive extra healing. Druid does great on passive damage. You need, when there's a big AoE check, we're not, like we said in old videos, we're not that shaman, we're not paladin, we pop wings and we just blanket the world, we're not shaman that can link everybody and forget it. We need to really prep for damage. So having this extra hot, it's nice, but there's still a little bit of RNG, right? We can't control how many procs should happen. We can't control if, your tankiest guy gets 3 or 4 procs of Symbiosis, and then a guy, shaman, who really needs the proc, doesn't get any for some weird reason, and he dies. That's kind of sad. So the RNG element is still there a little bit. It is fairly reasonable, but it's still similar to kind of how Convoke is very strong. There's still an RNG play, which is kind of frustrating. Then we go into basically your passive extra healing. So we have Wildstalker's power. Rapid Approach's bite deal more damage, which is great, but also your Rejuve, F-Flow, and Light Bloom increases its healing by 10%. Rejuve and F-Flow doesn't really matter. The healing is okay on both. F-Flow is actually kind of trash. But Light Bloom, 10% more healing is great since we're running the Rampant Growth talent. Not Rampant Growth, the other talent right here that gives you 90% more healing as it ticks during its duration, which is very strong. Then we have here Hunt Beneath the Open Skies. Again, just more damage while you're in cat form. And then you move out Sunfire, just 10% more damage, which is nice because you're still applying dots when you're not going. Maybe when you're walking up to a pack, you apply your Sunfire, a couple of Moonfires, and you shift into form and you start spreading bleeds. Strategic Infusion, again, same idea, more damage in cat form. And the other thing that you gain from this, you get a little more crit when you cast Regrowth, 8% I think it is. Yeah, you're taking healing from Regrowth, not your hard cast healing. You have 8% more chance to crit, which is okay, whatever. This is kind of neat though. You get a little more movement speed when you drop your bark skin. You have airflow on the ground. You run around a little bit faster, nothing too crazy, and you drop a little bit of a heal to people. Either way, you're seeing your airflow, so a little extra healing, a little bit of movement speed is nice. Ideally, you're kind of planted during these times where you have a lot of damage coming out, so 10% movement speed isn't very big, but it's something. if you have to move whatever mechanic. Lethal Preservation, again, that's every time you soothe, you get like it's a little bit of a heal, right? Yeah, you heal 4% of your health every time you're dispelling stuff or if you're soothing. So it's nice because you dispel some keys quite a bit, and you give them a little 4% heal. Kind of cool. Is it game breaking? Is it crazy? No. But I mean, chances of you dispelling someone who's taking a little 4% heal is nice because chances are you have to heal them off from the damage they just took. Um, this talent is kind of really strong, Harmonious Constitution. So when you're playing Wildstalker, you don't necessarily have to have your Light Bloom on you as much because your regrowth healing on yourself is very strong. It's 35% stronger. So you can technically Light Bloom 2 other people, have a rejuvenation and just regrowth yourself, which applies regrowth to the other 2 members of your team. But now the next time you regrowth, you're going to have the extra 40% crit when you regrowth. You'll have 50-60%. And you're going to have 35% more healing. So every regrowth is going to be pretty fat on yourself, where you're going to justify losing 30% on the Light Bloom from the 30% extra passive healing from the triple mastery stacks that we talked about earlier. You lose that, but you're already getting 35% more healing on your regrowth, which is what you're topping yourself off. So it's kind of cool with Wildstalker. You don't always have to have Light Bloom on yourself. You can shift a little bit more, which is kind of nice because then you're getting more blooms because you're running the photosynthesis. Yeah, when you have Light Bloom on somebody else, 4% chance every time it ticks to get a free bloom that just explodes and heals everyone. Because also when they're F-low, you get this healing as well, fervency. That's how it all works together. Every time the Light Bloom blooms, heals everybody, or 3 people for like 80k. It's more than that, but that's what the tooltip says. And it's nice AoE heal. And then if you're getting free blooms during an AoE situation, free healing, very nice. We all love that. Going into Bustling Growth here. Which one was this? Oh yeah, just as of they expire, you heal a little bit to pass the email to everybody, or you get your a little extra bleed damage after your bleeds, or Divine expires after Symbiosis, the free hot expires. Again, a little extra free healing. It's nice, but nothing crazy. This one is really nice. Where it is here. Your symbiotic blooms that you get now have a 20% chance to bounce to somebody else, which is very strong. Because if you get some lucky procs in the beginning, when F-low's ticking before damage goes out, and you have 2 or 3 already out, and then you do the wild growth, a couple more people get the tick, and then they start to expire, and they just start bouncing. It's kind of like, we had an old talent before. It was called like necrotic something. Adaptive Swarm, that's what it was, and a few years ago. But it was a big hot, and it bounced to people after it expired, which is really cool. This is kind of bringing that talent back into play with this free hot you get. Really cool, and again, the RNG on this can get out of control. You can get crazy free healing from this. Again, I'm not a big fan of RNG talents. It is what it is, but it's still very strong. The other one here I'm running with Root Network. So it says each active Bloodseeker Vine, which is your damage buddy on them. So when you're applying your rips and your rakes, you have a chance to get this Bloodseeker dot. And it increases the damage of all your other abilities by 2%. Not a big deal. The one we care about more for healing is that we also, from the symbiotic blooms we're getting on all the random people, it increases the healing of all your spells by 2%. This is kind of nice. It's a free 2% HPS. Is it crazy? No. But again, if you're getting multiple symbiotic blooms on someone, you're getting a lot of free HPS for nothing. And again, that's passive. We love to see passive healing for stuff like this. And the final one that we talked about a little bit early in there was Vigorous Creepers. Now this, again, like I said, every time you have Bloodseeker Vines around someone, increases all your damage by 5%. So if you're doing DPS as Wildstalker, you're going to get your bleeds out, get everything rolling. Eventually, after you have 3 rips out, 3 and then maybe a rake out, someone's going to proc this, the Bloodseeker Vine. And then when they have the Bloodseeker Vine, that is when you swap and you offensively convoke on that target. You have the 5% extra damage on the person, you rail all that extra damage, convoke goes crazy in cat form. Every minute if you want to use it, if you're able to use it offensively, you're going to do very great damage on packs. You have to assume you don't have to use Convoke for a healing check in the next minute. So you have to have a little bit of knowledge of the dungeon before you start doing this, but very strong. And then this is the one that's also very strong. So Symbiotic Blooms, when you're getting those free heals, this is the big thing. Increases healing your spells do by 20%. This is crazy. And this is why you get a little bit more HPS in Wildstalker, even though it's random, because every time you're getting these blooms, you're getting 20% more healing, and it already counts as an additional haunt. So the haunt itself gives you 10% more healing. With this talent, it counts as 20%, so it's 30% more healing. other stacks, from what I'm noticing, at least myself, doesn't apply extra mastery stacks, but still, it's almost like a life bloom now. It's like giving you a 30% more healing when that procs on somebody. Super strong. And then you're getting multiple stacks of it too, which are just healing for more. Very, very cool. So again, the reason because of this talent is why you can scale more HPS in theory. Again, the RNG gods will do what they're gonna do. Still, every encounter you should have a couple that'll proc. One of them may bounce. It's big healing. But if you see this proc on somebody, you know your next reroll from that person is going to be a juicy one. It's like having life on the target. So if you can get that onto someone other than your current life moon target, or sometimes you see that someone gets 1 or 2 stacks of symbiotic bloom, you can actually take your life bloom off the target if you want and put it onto someone else, and then swiftmend that person to extend the duration of this haunt, and then they're juiced and they're just chilling out. It's really nice. Anyways, that's kind of the all the talent breakdown for Wildstalker. You will do more damage because of this talent, and if you get the proper procs and the RNG, in theory, you will get more HPS. Whether that happens all the time, your guess is as good as mine. If you want more consistency, in theory, it's slightly less healing, but to be safer, you've got your Keeper the Grove talent here. So actually, I'll just actually go into my build for that here. Your Keeper, where are you? Here we go. So with this talent, nothing changes. It changes your playstyle a little bit because you're going more of a range playstyle. Single target, you're still applying your bleeds when you want to do like single boss damage. Try to keep your rib or your ripping your rake out. All fine and dandy. But how does this change how you heal? Well, this is mostly covered in my previous video, so I won't dive too crazy. But I'll still go over each talent choice so you guys can really hear it all. Here, you get 5% more mana. Nice. You're not really ooming now that you have gear. It can happen if you're doing things depending on like your team. You're trying to heavy blanket stuff because you don't know if your teammates are going to push defensive buttons. You can get in situations where you oom. I've had some of my videos where the tank pulls at 30% mana. Then you're getting sweaty because you're trying to be efficient and not oom. This comes in handy in that situation. The biggest thing I think in my book for Keeper the Grove is the 8% DR because you're always going to have a regrowth on yourself. 8% DR all the time is very powerful, especially in getting into upper echelon keys. It's the free 8%. Very, very nice. Then you have your Moonfires. Your Grove Guardians can cast Moonfires, which is nice. So I find when I'm a Keeper, I can just shoot a Grove Guardian out, shoot Sunfire, and then either Kitty Weave a little bit or just start casting Wraths or the big Starfires out. And I don't have to worry as much because I know Moonfire is going to cast and everything. You're going to have Moonfires and everything. So it saves you some globals in that aspect, again, which is nice. Easier prep on damage, you don't have to think about it, focus more on healing. Again, easier playstyle. Power of Nature. Your Grove Guardians increase the healing of your Rejuvenation, Effluent, and Life by 10%. But similar to the talent over here, because you're always going to have a Grove Guardian out, always, right? You have 3 charges. They're recharging every, what is the cooldown on this? 20 seconds, and they last for 15. So, like, you'll always have at least 1 out all the time. You'll always be off cooldown, and sometimes you'll double Grove Guardian for big healing checks. But you'll always have this extra 10% Light Bloom. The other 2, again, don't matter much, but the 10% more on Light Bloom is very strong. Scenario Smite. Casting Swiftmend increases your haste by 10%. I talked about this in the previous video. Very nice because you're always Swiftmending during difficult encounters. Like Swiftmend into a fat wild growth, or Swiftmend and cast super fast regrowths to top your team. Very, very nice. I love this talent. I wish things could be shifted over to Wildstalker, but it is what it is. And then I skipped the main. I got ahead of myself here, the Dream Search here. So it just basically makes it so you get these little petals on the ground, and they just basically heal people passively when you summon your Guardians. Nothing too crazy. It just makes it so you see a little more healing. It is what it is. Just things passive healing. Wrath and Starfire damage is increased by 10%, obviously because they're encouraging a range type of playstyle. Wildstalker, you're thinking melee damage. Keeper the Grove, you're thinking range. And 11.1, we're getting Moonkin form back, which I'm very excited for, because you can get pretty crazy convokes with Mooncorn, which used to also, I hope they still do. I haven't tested on the PTR, but ideally in the past, Moonkin convokes with proc had a chance to proc Starfall, which is crazy damage. If that comes in, we might see a shift more in keys into Keeper than it is Wildstalker, because the damage up and that is crazy whenever you get a Starfall, especially on a big pull. Very nice. And this talent's also very strong because it increases your wild growth, regrowth, and Swiftmend heals by 9%. Those are your 3 big, Your AoE healing is wild growth, Swift manages your single target heal as well as your regrowths. This helps a lot of single target healing, which is very nice. Again, safe playstyle, like I mentioned earlier. Blooming Infusion. So every 5 regrowths cast, you get your next, is it Raz, Starfire, and Tangle Roots. Yeah, I usually use it for roots in certain keys, but it just makes your next damaging range spell or entangling roots instant cast. So that's kind of nice, nothing too crazy. And then also vice versa, after you do 5 Star Surges, which you should be running, you should be running, oh, I don't have it right now this time, but if you're running Star Surge, every time you shoot 5, your next regrowth is also an instant cast, which is kind of helpful. So again, do what you want with that. By getting the free regrowth once in a while, it's a quick cast, but still, if you can Swiftman instant cast regrowth someone and then instantly you save yourself like 0.3 seconds, whatever it is. Anyways, it's something. Not crazy, more quality of life than anything else. Power of the Dream, healing spells cast with Dream Surge during an additional Dream Petal. So what does that mean? Where is Dream Surge? It should be over here. Yeah, so that's the main thing that's generating the 3 petals. So you're basically getting another petal. Nothing too crazy. Again, a little extra 100k healing, whatever it is. It stacks. Again, free healing. Again, no thought process. It's just happening when you get your trees out. It's nice. Then we have Bond to this Bloom. Your Growth Guardian's healing is increased by 30%. This is why you run, sometimes people will run with this specific talent when Keeper. It makes them so they cast an additional, they cast Wild Growth first, which is nice, AoE healing for everyone. And it also makes your Nourish take more mastery, so they heal even harder. So you get the extra mastery healing, plus you have this talent, they're pumping a lot of heals. And if you get a blanket little baby Wild Growth from them as well, again, more AoE healing. The Wild Growth, however, doesn't count as a stack of mastery when the Growth Guardian is casted. Don't know why, the game hates us. It is what it is, so you can't think of it as like a free mastery stack, unfortunately. But still, 30% more healing, very nice, from all the Guardians, and they do a lot of healing, you'll see on your thing, especially in this build too. And the final one here is Harmony of the Grove, which just makes it every time you have one guy out, which I told you should always have one of these guys out, all your healing is increased by 5%. Which is nice though, because you can technically do 2 sometimes if you want. So a big healer check, you don't have Convoke, you don't have a big healing, you don't have Iron Bark for your Shaman, whoever else in your group that needs it. Well, now double Guardian to get 10% more healing. Then I do the Wild Growth. They blanket the group, they start casting mastery hits. Very nice, very strong. These are the breakdowns of the 2 talents. Like I mentioned earlier, Keeper is a little bit safer, a ranged playstyle, a little more passive healing you don't have to think about. Wildstalker, a little more micromanaging. You have to keep track of your symbiotic blooms that are going off. When you see them going off, you can respond accordingly, how you heal. You can get, technically, in theory, when you did math, you'll get more HPS on Wildstalker. You can get crazy more HPS, or you can get less, right? It's still RNG. I do dislike that about it. The reason I play Wildstalker personally is because as you're getting the higher keys, damage becomes a little bit more of an issue. So it's nice to get ideally in big healing check situations, you get a little bit more healing from the blooms because you always have F-Log down. You're always going to use a Wild Growth. So I've been running this. I'll show this whole talent tree that I've been running lately in my recent keys. And again, you'll do, 50 or 100k more DPS. Until you get to 18s and 19s, healer damage is irrelevant. So now when anyone says, oh, you only do 100k, 200k in a key, a priest can do 300 or 400k, it literally does not matter. It's such a small number when people are doing 2.5 million damage in keys. It's not like how it used to be. And you trying to push out damage and causing someone to die, it'll never be worth it. You always have to prioritize life over damage in keys because of the 15-second timer that you lose now. It is super punishing, and because your damage is so reduced this expansion, it's like it's kind of decentralizing to try to pump damage. When you know your group is for sure safe, absolutely try to pump damage. And as you get more familiar in keys, you'll say, hey, this group is good. You start playing with certain people, you know they're going to get kicks out. And then once you get to really hard keys, you know, like, if a kick goes out, they're one-shot anyways. So I don't have to worry about it. Like, I just start pumping damage when I can. Someone gets one-shot, they get one-shot. There's nothing you can do about it, whether you're out healing or not. So take that with a grain of salt. Another thing you want to do, if you want to do more damage, you should be running this talent called the Elder Druid. It's very nice. This is actually changing too in 11.1, where when you shift, it'll be only shifting. Right now, you shift forms and you get this proc. However, in 11.1, it'll be only when you use like Rake, or I think if you use Star Search when you have your Boomkin form, which is really nice. I'll do a video on 11.1 later, kind of showing all the changes that are happening. But if you're trying to do a little bit of damage, whether you're in higher keys trying to min-max, or if you are in smaller keys with your buddy who's just doing 10s for the week, for sure run this talent. For sure try to get it on this side as well. It's a lot of fun when you pop Heart of the Wild. You get the free one every minute, which lines up with your Convoke, so you can get some crazy damage for fun. But again, small stuff, more meme stuff, not as important. But yeah, I hope that guys answered all your questions. I hope I kind of broke down everything to make it very clear for you guys to understand. Like I said, the TLDR from before is Wildstalker, slightly more damage, and the RNG odds are correct. You'll get more HPS. You will be more squishy though. Keeper of the Grave, safer, freer healing, less managing of the extra hawk, you don't have the extra symbiosis bloom point out, easier on your mind, easier during burst healing. You just have your Swiftman, you Swiftman as soon as damage starts, you get 10% more haste. It is actually very strong. Spam regrowths, people are blanketed, your Guardians are healing more pure of mind. So if you're still learning Druid, I highly still recommend going Keeper, getting familiar with this toolkit, and then as you start getting really familiar with the dungeons, you want to maybe push a little more higher echelons of the higher keys, you try going to Wildstalker and play around this, track this symbiotic bloom. Hope this was helpful, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope it answers some of the questions you guys might have. And yeah, like normal, any more questions, shoot in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. And have a good day. Take care, everyone.